Joining us once again on Townsquare Sunday is Laura Orleans, director of the New Bedford Fishing Heritage Center. She's here to speak about a very busy February at the center. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Tim.
One of the highlights this month at the Heritage Center is a staged reading of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. It's happening on the 15th of February in the Fishing Heritage Center on Bethel Street. And Jessica Wilson is joining us as well. Jessica is a member of a odd-named theater group, the Watermelon Alligator Theater Group. Where is that based, Jessica?
So we actually are a touring company. We're all over southeastern New England, basically.
Very good. Okay, and so this is a staged reading of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Correct me. Have you done a lot of this, Laura?
We have not done a lot of, in terms of theater. We had a theater performance last week, actually, but this is really unique. I don't know how much you want me to say right at this moment, but it's kind of a neat story how it came to be.
Talk.
So we have a volunteer, and a friend of hers said, I've got this old book, and I don't know what to do with it. I'd like to donate it to somebody. And it's this Rime of the Mariner or something. So we all got together, and true enough, she has an 1876 volume of Rime of the Ancient Mariner with beautiful, beautiful etchings by Gustave Doré. It's just a treasure. And so we talked about what does it mean to donate it and how are we going to display it or use it and all of that, because it's absolutely gorgeous. It's it's fragile, it's old, and we have a very small space. So what we decided to do was to have the plates photographed, so that, and actually the whole book photographed, but the plates so that we can project them on the night of that performance. And then I reached out to my old friend Jessica Wilson to see if she might be able to pull some actors together to do a staged reading of the text. Because one thing that I notice is that theater or plays and poetry in this country are often read off the page but not aloud. And it's such a crime when you're a high school student to be reading Shakespeare or something like Rime of the Ancient Mariner and not ever hear it, to hear that wonderful language. So anyhow, that's how that came to be. Just to tell you that the epilogue is that we have offered, and they've accepted, the New Bedford Free Public Library will be the permanent home for the volume after the performance, so that it'll be treasured and cared for properly. But we're really excited to be able to present it.
Is this like an original, 150 years old kind of volume?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
beautiful.
And it'll be on display that night.
So this is a very special kind of story or reading. Tell us where this came from, who wrote it.
And of course. And I should also say sort of why the Fishing Heritage Center. It was written by Samuel Coleridge, and I don't know the original publication date. I want to say 1794 or something around there. And to be honest, I had not read this text. I know many people do read this. I think it's typically assigned in high school. And I assumed that rhyme, which is spelled R-I-M-E, referred to a poem because it's written in verse. However, it is not. It refers to the ice that forms in a fog on a vessel. So that was the most exciting thing of all, because we had already planned probably 6 months ago to do thematic programming, and the month of February is dedicated to ice as a theme. So it fits right into that, and the icing up of a vessel is something that's very dangerous for our fishing fleet, so it also sort of fits into fishing in that regard.
I love going back in time. That's why Jessica's here. She's going to take us back in time to high school and read a small portion of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Go ahead, Jessica.
Nor dim nor red, like God's own head, the glorious sun uprist, and then all averred, I had killed the bird that brought the fog and mist. 'Twas right, they said, such birds to slay that bring the fog and mist. The fair breeze blew, the white foam flew, the furrow followed free. We were that first that ever burst into that silent sea. Down dropped the breeze, the sails dropped down, 'twas sad as sad could be, and we did speak only to break the silence of the sea. Day after day, we stuck, nor breath nor motion, as idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. Water, water everywhere, and all the boards did shrink. Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink.
Famous line. Jessica, thank you very much. This performance, again, is on February 15th at 7 p.m. It's at the Fishing Heritage Center in New Bedford. It is that's on Bethel Street, the bottom of Bethel Street. And there is a small charge for that night, but it is well worth, I think, to hear this piece of literature once again. And what, I know you talked about this earlier, but what made you say, hey, we can do this on a stage, we can bring people in? Again,
sure.
It's not Moby Dick. It's great, but it's not Moby
No,
Dick,
and I should assure people that it'll probably last about 45 minutes or so, so it's not a 25-hour reading.
Yeah, no, it's probably about an hour, because we're going to try to pace it so that people really have time to look at the illustrations that are being projected, because they're just beautiful.
Yeah. But one of the things that we're doing, we're very new, and so I sort of feel like this, we've been open a year and a half, that what we're doing at this time is throwing spaghetti at the ceiling to see what sticks, and, what brings people in the door. And, certainly there are people who come in we have concerts, we have films, we have exhibits, we have school programs. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. Let's try theater. And we have a wonderful open space that it's a flex space. It turns into one thing and then another over the course of a week. And we have great acoustics. And so, it just seemed like without a lot of a lot of production value, I guess you would say, we could do this thing called a staged reading, which is basically, the actors they're not going to be in costume, but they'll be reading from this text in a dramatic way, the way that you just heard Jessica do. And then we have a wonderful large screen that was provided through some funding from the Crapo Foundation, and it's allowing us to show all kinds of films and things, but also we will project the images from the book so people will get to see these gorgeous illustrations.
You're listening to Townsquare Sunday on WBSM. My guest is Laura Orleans from the New Bedford Fishing Heritage Center and Jessica Wilson of the Watermelon Alligator Theater Company. Laura, let's look at some of the other events you've got scheduled coming up for this month. February 8th, there's a new exhibit opening, Frozen Assets, the History of Ice on the New Bedford waterfront.
We're very excited about this. So many people may not realize that the fishing vessels still keep their catch fresh and cold with ice. Most of them do not yet have or don't have refrigeration, and they find that the ice is a way of not freezing the product but keeping it really fresh. So we wanted to kind of look at the history of all of that, and we reached out to Joe Swift, who's the owner of Crystal Ice Company, and it was actually his grandfather that started that company back in 1957. And Joe came forward with all kinds of old tools from the days of cutting pond ice, as well as some really cool old historic footage. We've got a couple of our volunteers who've done amazing amounts of research looking at the history of ice from prehistory all the way up to the present day. We've got contemporary footage and images from Crystal Ice Company as well. And we'll look at some really fun things like the fact that Crystal Ice Company has made ice for Hollywood. So little known fact, but I think they're on their third or fourth Hollywood film at this point.
Wow.
So it'll be a neat thing with a lot of objects and, things for people to look at. We actually have borrowed some materials from the Woods Hole Historical Museum. They did their own exhibit about ice and ice making. And one of the things they're lending us is a 50-pound replica ice block so that visitors will be able to try their hand at lifting a 50-pound ice block.
All right. So that one is entitled Frozen Assets, Ice Making, and the New Bedford Fishing Industry. It will run till April 29th. It opens on February 8th and runs till April 29th. And no charge for that?
Nope, and I should say, too, so the opening coincides with the AHA night. We're always open in the evenings on AHA. And at 7 p.m. on that night, we're showing a special film called Harvesting Ice in New England, 1926 to 1957. So in addition to the local footage from Crystal Ice, this is a film that we purchased from the Northeast Historic Film Archives, I believe it's called. And so that'll be shown on our big screen, and it's about an hour-long documentary.
February 12th, Vessel Stability Training.
So vessel stability training, any captains or boat owners who might be listening, or fishermen who might be listening, the Fishing Partnership, their great partner organization, will be using our space to do a vessel stability training, and that's a super important aspect of safety for people who are out on the water. One of the things that can happen is a vessel can become covered in ice, especially as they come back into port and the weather gets colder when you leave the middle of the ocean, and the vessel can become unstable in that instance. And so this is, they're bringing in an Alaskan safety trainer for the day, and the Fishing Partnership would be the organization to sign up for that.
All right. And on, of course, the 15th, we have the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. We've heard about that. On the 16th, Friday the 16th, the venue moves to the National Park Theater. In the Visitor Center, the documentary After the Storm, Lessons from the Northern Edge. This one kind of hits home.
Absolutely.
But there are some lessons that can be learned and were learned shortly after investigations were completed in that instance. This subject matter is pretty serious, and it's something fishermen should think about. This is why the investigations were done, and I'm sure why this documentary was done.
Right. So the documentary runs, I think, about an hour. Rodney Avila, who's a veteran fisherman and also safety trainer, will be on hand to answer questions after the film. For anybody who may not know the details, the Northern Edge was a scallop boat out of New Bedford, and it went down in December of 2004. There were, I believe, 5 crew members on the boat, 4 of whom perished and 1 survived, and that person had had safety training in Portugal. And so for a lot of people in our community, the light kind of went on, and there was a huge effort with the city and a number of nonprofit organizations, and I think the university was involved. And the effort to train fishermen in terms of not just vessel stability issues, but how to set off a flare, how to don a survival suit, how to get into a life raft. And so I think at this point they've trained over 3,000 fishermen, and proudly they announce that nobody has ever paid for any of that training, none of the fishermen. It's all offered free of charge. And so we're really pleased to be a partner in just educating the public about
Not
the importance.
just New Bedford either. This training extends Point Judith, Rhode Island, and
even down to New York, I believe. Yeah, and Deb Kelsey, who's one of our board members, is a navigator for the Fishing Partnership, so she's very involved in training fishermen.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful program, and I'm sure it saved some lives since 2004. Where can people go to get more information on these events?
Yes, absolutely. Our website is probably the best place to go, and that's fishingheritagecenter.org. We also have a Facebook page, and we'd love to have people join in that way and follow us. If you're interested in receiving our e-newsletter, you can sign up for that through the website, and we send that out once a month, the e-news, and then some special blasts when we've got exciting things like what we've talked about today.
All right. Let's bring back Jessica Wilson from the Watermelon Alligator Theater Company. Jessica, have you done, I'm sure you have, but have you done readings like this before with this book?
Not with this book. No, this is a first. And I've been involved in the New Bedford sort of fishing world for a while. I grew up here, and I've been emceeing. I've had the privilege of emceeing the Working Waterfront Festival every year. It's been, except one, when my sister got married. But so when Laura called, it was just a great experience, a great project to say, yeah, let's do it.
All right. So again, February 8th, Frozen Assets, Ice Making and the New Bedford Fishing Industry, a new exhibit at the Fishing Heritage Center. It sounds exciting, sounds different.
I think so.
And I'm familiar with Crystal Ice in my younger days, but I didn't know they were making ice for movies, so you told me something new. On the 15th, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, a staged reading of that wonderful story. Is it considered a story or poem, or what is it considered?
It's considered a ballad. So, it's a form of epic poetry that was common at the time, meant to be sung or spoken in verse, because obviously the rhyming meter fits. So, but
and Jim, you should ask about the name Watermelon Alligator.
You know, I was going to do that, and then I said, okay, what's the story with the name?
So watermelon alligator is one of the phrases that actors are taught to say or mouth if they're on set, either on stage or on a film set, and they're supposed to be looking like they're having a conversation with someone, but they need to not be picked up by the microphone or to make too much noise so that the leads and whatever the dialogue is happening. So you walk around the stage and you have a series of words that you're supposed to say, and watermelon alligator is one of those phrases. So we took it, we said, well, most of us have been character actors for a really long time, and we're all working actors, we're all professional actors. And so it's nice for us to have a group where we can do some fun projects like this. We do a lot of charity events and things that, like, this is raising money for the Fishing Heritage Center, and we did a staged reading as part of Glass Horse Project, which does Shakespeare in Buttonwood. And that will be going on again this summer. They're going to do another free production of Shakespeare. So we're really excited to be bringing more stuff to New Bedford.
Well, we are a burgeoning cultural center to listen to city officials, and we've hired a cultural director. We're raring to go here. So, two other events you want to tell you about. As you mentioned, the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Thursday, February 15th, 7 p.m. There's a small charge there, but it's being held at the Fishing Heritage Center. A stage reading. It should be fun. And then two fairly serious events. Talk about the vessel stability training on the 12th. Is that going to be an evening event? Or?
That's actually all day, and that's not so much open to the public. It's not a program in that respect, but it's for the fishermen, fishing industry. Yeah.
And then at the Visitor Center, National Park Theater, After the Storm, Lessons from the Northern Edge. If you've been around here any length of time, you remember that tragedy. And there's a documentary that will share with all of us some of the lessons that have been learned from that tragedy. All sponsored by the Fishing Heritage Center in New Bedford. Laura Orleans of the New Bedford Fishing Heritage Center and Jessica Wilson of the Watermelon Alligator Theater Company, thanks for coming in, and good luck with these activities.